Today on General Hospital, Lucy reluctantly signs over half of deception to Tracy. Laura visits with Curtis, and TJ is troubled by Mason. At the Metro Court, Lucy meets with Scott to sign the official documents, signing over 51% of deception over to Tracy. Laura interrupts them needed to talk to Scott. She drags him off and asks what compelled him to help Cyrus. Scott says it's not as if he broke Cyrus out, and he made it clear to him that he's not on retainer for him, and this was a one-shot deal. She asks if he really thinks Cyrus deserves to be released. Scott knows Lee would be disappointed in him for defending Cyrus, just like she is, but this was a high-profile case and he has to keep his practice going. She again asks if he thinks Cyrus deserves to be released. Scott says he did seem to be a different guy at the hearing, but he also saw him earlier and he looked pretty healthy too. Laura gets a text and has to run off. Scott returns to Lucy, who still hasn't signed the papers. Later he finds Lucy gone and she took his pen. In the Aurora office, Martin catches Michael listening to the recording of him confessing Nina had him call the SEC. He thinks it's time to tell his dad what kind of woman he married, but Martin suggests he think before pulling that trigger. Martin warns Nina will see this as him destroying her life, but Michael doesn't care as Nina destroyed his mother's life. Martin says he always does research on his clients, and given what Nina's capable of, including inducing Eva's labor to steal her child, Michael should consider that if he's going to take away everything that matters to her. Michael thinks Martin is just worried about what she'll do to him. Martin suggests he should be worried too, and she has the power and influence to make his life and those he cares about hell. Martin exits, leaving Michael to think. Nana surprises Sonny at his office with some of their framed wedding photos, including some of the kids which she plans to make copies of for Carly, Michael, and Willow. Their talk turns to Carly and Drew, the latter of whom is back in Pentonville. Nana hopes Carly is able to get him out. Nina has work to do, so she heads out. Michael stops by to see his dad and catches him on the phone talking to Sal about how happy he is. Sonny is glad to see Michael, whom he hasn't seen since the wedding. Michael says he needs to talk to him about something. Sonny shows Michael the photos Nina brought by, and that she has ones of Donna for Carly, and of Willow and Wiley for him. Sonny gushes that Nina has changed his life, and that's nothing against Carly, who is happy with Drew, who will hopefully get out of that hellhole soon. Michael says that is what he came to talk to him about. Sonny interrupts and says Nina said she wanted Carly to get Drew out of Pentonville, and maybe she can use her magazine to help. Sonny thinks he should call her, but Michael tells him to stop. Michael says they just got married, so not to burden Nina with this. Sonny realizes he's right and gushes that he wants his marriage to last forever like his and Willow's. Michael decides to get back to work. Before he leaves, Sonny asks what he came by to tell him. Michael assures his father he can figure it out on his own. Sonny says he can come to him with anything, and they embrace. Michael walks out and makes a call to Nina's office, but she's out. He learns she's expected back soon, and says he'll speak to her when he sees her. Back at the Metro Court, Martin arrives and runs into Scott. He asks if he's seen Lucy, but Scott just vents that she ran off with his pen and storms out. Soon Nina arrives upset, and asks Martin what he's done. He says he is ashamed that he's let her down, and hopes she can forgive him. She says it's not the end of the world, she just wanted him to file those contracts with an advertiser by the end of business day yesterday. He realizes she doesn't know what he's done, and keeps quiet. At the hospital, Austin pulls Cyrus into a closet and holds a scalpel to him. Austin vents that he did everything he asked and Cyrus still tried to kill Ava. Cyrus is impressed, but says Austin's had his moment, and now he's going to take his hands off him and find a way to get him in to see Mason. TJ checks on Mason, and tells him he should make a full recovery after his surgery, and likely be behind bars soon. Mason, who is cuffed to the bed, tells TJ he's gotten out of worse jams before and will this time. TJ leaves, but appears troubled. Austin brings Cyrus to see Mason, and Cyrus says Austin was just extremely upset with him, as he was under the impression that he ordered Mason to kill Ava. He says he gave Austin his word that Ava would be brought home safely, and he is not someone who goes back on his word. He tells Mason to tell his cousin what he said to him the night he was with Ava. Mason admits he was told to take Ava home. Cyrus says Mason disobeyed him, and Mason admits he did. Cyrus isn't happy with him, but at least Ava is safely home. Cyrus gives Mason his word that the pain he felt when he was shot will pale to what he will feel in his long journey to death if he ever betrays him again. Cyrus screams at him to say he understands, so Mason does. Cyrus smacks him where he was shot and says, "Godspeed." Cyrus asks Austin if they understand one another, and Austin says they do. Austin steps out. Portia returns home, and Curtis didn't expect her home so early and asks if something happened. She claims nothing happened. Curtis says he was looking at the photos Trina sent him of her and Spencer in New York. Portia asks to see them, so he shows them to her. She sees they had a good time, which was not the reaction Curtis was expecting. Portia knows she can't tell Trina who she can see and what she can or can't do. She gets a text and has to get back to work. Portia heads out and meets Laura, who has come to see Curtis, at the door. Laura says in case she didn't know, her brother is out of prison. Portia knows and asks Laura not to mention it to Curtis just yet. She tells Laura that Curtis will be happy to see her, and she heads out. Laura visits with Curtis, who is glad she came to see him. She apologizes for being gone so long, but he knows she was looking for her son. She assures him that Mac and Jordan are looking for the person who shot him, not that it is much solace to him. Curtis is just trying to focus on the future and make the best of his life. Laura says she wanted to reach out to him, but didn't think she could express just what he means to her over the phone. He knows they have been through a lot, and she says they have an unbreakable connection. Back at the hospital, Portia runs into TJ, who is clearly troubled by something. TJ says there is a patient, Mason, and there is something about him. TJ dismisses it and says he probably just reminds him of some other creep he's run across. Later, Cyrus sneaks out past Portia. At the Quartermain mansion, Yuri, who now works for the Quartermains, gets Lois some cookies and other small snacks per her request. Brooklyn thought her mother was stuffed after lunch, but Lois says they are for Chase. She invited him over given they were going to go over Brooklyn's plans for Blaze. Brooklyn knows better, and she accuses her mom of inviting Chase over to help convince her to change her mind about Tracy's offer. Brooklyn swears she'll put her in the box she put Tracy in and promises to never speak to her again if she brings it up. Yuri then brings Chase in. Lois tells Chase she asked him over to help Brooklyn with her song for Blaze, and she asks if he'd mind singing her new song while Brooklyn plays the piano. Chase says he'll always sing whatever Brooklyn writes. As Chase sings and Brooklyn plays, Lois watches. After Chase finished, Lois says that was perfect and wishes she could have heard him and Blaze sing together. Lucy appears with the contracts and asks Brooklyn where the Wicked Witch is. Brooklyn says Tracy went out of town to New York. Lucy rants of course she did and screams Brooklyn is just as responsible for all of this as Tracy is. Chase tries to defend Brooklyn, but she says Lucy has every right to be angry. Lucy had hoped Tracy would be her to see the spoils of her viciousness. She signs the contract, throws it at Brooklyn, and hopes she's satisfied. Lucy then storms out. Lois picks up and hands the signed contracts to Brooklyn.